the Smart Towns Wales project is a project which is funded by the Welsh Government, and it started off as a pilot project for a year. So the year of Smart Towns was to raise awareness of the technologies involved, to create case studies, and to build these kinds of networks to put Wales in a good situation to develop smart towns. Now we're in a kind of extension period, so still working on, making contacts and just opening the dialogue really. There will then be another phase coming up, and it is very closely linked with the Transforming Towns agenda. So I know some of you have mentioned funds, so it's very closely linked with that, collecting data and things like that. Anyway, I'll go through it a bit more in detail. So yeah, like I said, raising awareness, how it comes under regeneration, so all to do with making high streets livelier, supporting businesses, and it's all a kind of big ecosystem. So what we do is we provide webinars, masterclasses, showcases, so we can put you in touch with different companies, so tech companies from Wales, from further afield. We also work with towns and with consultancies to make digital placemaking plans. So you can see these on our website, and I'll also go into detail later on in the presentation about how you can make your own plans as well, and then we can review those for you. We also provide, contact support, and just that network, really, that support network. So what is a smart town? I realise this might be new to some of you might already know, but basically a smart town uses different types of electronic methods and sensors to collect data, so then use insights from that data to manage assets, resources and services efficiently. So that data is used then to improve the operations and future prosperity across the town, and we'll go through some examples of that in a bit. So we'll go over how to become a smart town, so your action plan involving the people and the place. We'll then cover some digital infrastructure that's necessary, some other technologies that can then be added, what you can do with the data, and then how the data helps address issues in the town, and how it helps analyse how well any interventions have helped. So the presentation obviously is linear, but I've put this in a circle because it is very much a process, and it's a kind of never-ending process, as obviously things are always innovating and developing. So first of all, the people and the place. I think people tend to think, oh, a smart town, it's very technology focused, but when it comes down to it, it is all about making the place better. It's about looking at an individual place, maybe identifying some challenges, some aspirations, and seeing how technology can either provide evidence for that need or for the development, or can actually help. But lots of the interventions might not even be digital interventions, if that makes sense. So like I said, we take a holistic view of the town. What are the problems, what are the aspirations? So obviously we all know the challenges that are facing the towns. They need to become more economically strong, things need to be convenient, engaging and relevant, and able to adapt to all these challenges. So what we do at first is we look at the challenges, and it's much the same in different towns across Wales. Not enough, transport, parking, empty shops, buildings looking run down, which leads to low footfall, and it's a vicious circle, one leads to the other, and it kind of spirals from there really in a knock-on effect. So high streets are changing. There isn't really a lot that we can do about that, except to stay up to date and keep evolving. So things like trying to increase the dwell time, trying to increase the repeat visits, making high streets a pleasant place to be. So, making sure that you've got the clean air, the pedestrianised areas, enough parking, and all those obviously help feed visits to the town. So here are some kinds of interventions that people have been trying. This is all taken from Cardigan. So Cardigan is the kind of pioneer Welsh smart town. Their mayor is really active, and he was also a very active part of the Year of Smart Towns programme. So he suggested things like events, Sunday market, loyalty systems, you know, making sure that street lighting and general appearance is good, clear signage and maps. That can also be, you know, digital signage, cycle maps, entertainment. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do to help the high street and help improve footfall. And this is, you know, a big part of the Smart Towns programme. So like I said, it's using the data to have solid evidence of the issue, using the data to support applications for grants, measuring the progress of any interventions. And I think important to note that the technology isn't necessarily anything new. So supermarkets have been using these kinds of technologies, you know, for decades. So it's all about giving the towns and the small businesses an opportunity to try and level the playing field a little bit, or at least to give them, you know, a little bit of help where that's concerned. So the data also helps people learn more about their visitors, about the prospective customers, and ideally, you know, come together as a town to create a town-wide marketing strategy, you know, to have special offers for locals, to keep the tourists coming back. And yeah, it's cheesy, but, you know, to be part of the change, to not get left behind. So the first step is obviously the people, so your smart town team. I think lots of people, they think, you know, oh, smart towns, I have to be techie, and that's not the case at all. So it's more, you know, a positive, inquisitive attitude and just wanting to make a difference. So all kinds of people can be useful. So obviously your town council, your county council, you know, your bids, your decision makers, but also, you know, we've had regen groups, we've just had you know, local champions, so maybe some people who are retired and who are interested in helping the town, people on work experience. You know, it's a great opportunity for students to get a bit more experience. Social enterprises can be really helpful, obviously, chambers of commerce, tourism groups, creative thinkers, not necessarily, you know, your kind of techie thinkers, and a good mix, a good balance of these people is really helpful when it comes to, you know, putting a team together. So kind of skills, I think I mentioned a little bit. The willingness is the most important thing, and perseverance. So I won't go through them all. So other considerations is, you know, will this be a formal or an informal group? What kind of funding is available? Is there a plan already in place? So I know lots of councils now have a placemaking plan. So is digital already a part of that? How can we make sure that digital supports that? And obviously there's no point reinventing the wheel and coming up with a new plan if there's something similar already in place. And, you know, who will arrange things like meeting up, the agenda and responsibilities? So obviously I don't want to put people off, but I think everyone seems to be really excited at first. They sit around the table, they have all kinds of ideas, but when it comes to actually taking the lead, that can be a little bit of a struggle. So that's just something to bear in mind. So now we'll talk a bit about the technology. So this is two sections really. You've got the digital infrastructure and then the actual technologies. So by infrastructure, I mean things like, you know, your fibre, your broadband. Obviously, if you're having loads of apps and loads of different technologies, you want to make sure that your fibre is good enough. So we have a good relationship with the digital infrastructure section of the Welsh Government. So if you know that connectivity is a problem, then that's a good place to start, and we can help put you in touch with the right people. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into the techie side of it. Mobile again, mobile coverage, as I'm sure we've all experienced in Wales, can be a bit of a struggle. So that's something to bear in mind, you know, if you are thinking a town app won't be any good if you don't have the coverage that you need. But there are solutions around that, which we can have a separate chat about if that's something you're interested in. Again, wireless, so town Wi-Fi is something that lots of places start with as a town. So here are some examples of maps. So most cases it will just, you know, cover the high street, give tourists and locals a chance to have access to that service. There are a lot of considerations, again, you know, installation, security, sometimes even things like planning. We've got a lot of resources to help with that, and a lot of experience as well actually installing these networks. And LoRaWAN, I think this might be new to some people, it might not be. So LoRaWAN is a long range wide area network, so it's radio waves, and they allow you to submit small bits of data. So instead of sending information over the internet, you can send it in this way. So they'll just be small bits of data, so you can't kind of talk over it. It'll be a case of, you know, this is open, this needs attention, that kind of thing. But we'll go into it a bit more later. Really, really useful things. It has great range, which is brilliant in rural areas, and uses very little power. And it connects things called the Internet of Things. So that'll be all your sensors and things like that. So back to Wi-Fi, one of the main reasons that towns are installing the Wi-Fi systems, obviously absolute lifeline to you know, people who are struggling at the moment, so being able to access services and things like that. But also it collects the anonymous data in the background. So how this works, you don't have to be connected to the Wi-Fi, so that's two separate things. So you can, when people connect to the Wi-Fi, they can log in, they can answer some questions, so you have a little bit of information. They can also give their email address so that you can mark it then as a town, as I was saying earlier. But then the separate side of it is that whenever somebody is in the area with a smart Wi-Fi enabled device, so any phones, iPads and things like that, your phone is always trying to connect to the Wi-Fi wherever you are. So that's how you just connect automatically when you get home or when you get to work. And that little signal that is that your phone sends when it's trying to connect, that is counted by the system, and that's counted as a person. So it's completely anonymous, you know, it doesn't have any information about who the person is, or, you know, where they've been or anything like that. It just literally counts them. It hashes and salts their what's called your MAC address, so there's no information at all that can be found about the person. And the Wi-Fi also offers opportunities like, you know, having a splash page, so people get off the bus and they think, oh, there's not much to do here. They can log on to the Wi-Fi and they can see. So this is a really great example of Bethesda. So you have a map and then you have a link to all the different local businesses. So that's really great. But obviously that then means that somebody has to manage that. So whether that's a Chamber of Trade or a town council or something, but that's really, really worthwhile. And this is kind of the back end of that. So as I was saying, footfall is counted anonymously, and then this can be accessed in graphs, so, or as raw data if you're that way inclined. So here, these are some examples. Some of you might be aware the Welsh Government bought a Cisco Meraki Wi-Fi system for every county in Wales. And I think this is an example from Menai Bridge. So the Cisco Meraki dashboard shows how many people are visiting. It compares passers-by to the people who are spending more time, and then it breaks it down for you and tells you how much time people are spending on average. It tells you how many repeat visits there are, if people are visiting, you know, if they're first-time visitors or if they've been there a few times. over the past week or month and things like that. So really useful stuff for the businesses. And then on the right is an example of the Patron dashboard. So Patron was developed in a partnership between Mented Morn and a company called Coda Garden. And it shows, this is example, so you can actually compare the footfall across different towns. So this can be useful for all kinds of reasons. I mean, you could see maybe if there's an event in a neighbouring town that your footfall in your town is down, or you could see that, you know, they're doing more out of season to attract visitors. So absolute endless possibilities there. So now I'll talk a bit about the different technologies that you know you can add on top of that. So town apps are very popular, tends to be one of the main things people ask about, and there are some great examples out there. So you know you can provide all kinds of local information, activities, special offers. But of course you have to bear in mind kind of the costs and the practicalities of it. So apps can be quite expensive to set up and to run. They can take a lot of work maintaining them. So that's something to bear in mind. But you do get a lot of analytics from that. So just a bit more information to add to that picture that you're building up of the town and who's visiting. And really cool features. So using beacons. So this is an example in Cardigan. People who have the app will get a little notification from some of the businesses when they're passing. So saying, you know, pop in to get some advice on the best beaches in the area. So it's tech, but it's adding a kind of human side. You know, why would somebody go to a shop instead of shopping online? Well, you can pop in and you can get the local knowledge that you won't be able to get, you know, off Amazon. So just things like that that'll make an experience a bit more enjoyable for visitors as well. Like I said, there are so many platforms. There are people who build apps specifically tailored for your town. So that'll be a bit more expensive or a lot more expensive, depending on the kind of thing that you're after. There are also platforms that are kind of good to go. So you just put your own information onto it. And there are Welsh-based companies as well. So Visitor, or Near Me Now, is a company based in South Wales, and they have an app, and they're also offering support to towns to actually set up a chamber of commerce, because lots of businesses will say, oh, we want to be involved, but don't have the time, as I was mentioning earlier, you know, to put the team together kind of thing. So this company actually helps with that, and that is as a free service as well. I don't know how far that service goes, but certainly worth thinking about if that's something that you'd be interested in. QR Box is another company which is similar. That works with QR codes around the town, so you wouldn't actually have to download the app. And businesses are responsible for their own listing, so they can update it, you know, as often as they like, put special offers on, or different things like that. And QR Books are actually offering a year free trial to any town in Wales. So again, kind of low risk, potentially high payoff, if you're interested in something like that. And there's all kinds of digital rewards platforms. MyConnect, we have a case study on the website with that as well. So digital rewards cards would kind of mean that you wouldn't have to keep, you know, a card in your wallet. That's all on your phone. And there are all kinds of different ones. There's even one called Travel Perks, which can be used. So instead of getting points that you can spend in the shops, your local shopping points can be used for green transport. So that will then encourage people to use, you know, it could be electric scooters, it could be, you know, buses, public transport, anything like that. There's also an important part of it, which is kind of public consultation, and that can also be done through Smart Towns technology. So obviously that can be done through your simple QR codes. And this is another platform called Hello Lamppost, which is a worldwide company now. And this was their first pilot in Wales. So this was in Porthmadog, and we used it for people to find out more about the town and to give feedback as well. They're also, I think they're rolling it out on a county-based basis in lots of places, and they're using it for more things than just this. So if there's anything particular that you want to try and learn or prevent, so it's been used to discourage fly tipping. It's even been used as a kind of mental health support system. So really interesting, and we've got a webinar about that as well that you could catch up on if you'd like to learn more. So digital signage, I think it was Judith that was saying this would be of interest. So there are all kinds of different screens available, and I think they're really building in popularity as well, because, you know, obviously they're eye-catching, they can be interactive. So the Smart Hub, these are actually mind-blowing, the amount of things that can be integrated into them. So you can have a touch screen so you can find, you know, the right information that you're looking for, whether that's local businesses, maps, activities. They can also give you your own Wi-Fi. They can have sensors on them, so they can tell you what the, you know, what the temperature is, what the weather is, how many people have been in the area. You can charge your phone on them, you can make phone calls with them, you can have defibrillators in them as well, or you can have it, you know, to phone the emergency services. Absolutely endless. Or you can have simpler and obviously cheaper versions where it's just like a moving screen, so almost like a screensaver, and you can just put the information that you want on it yourself. So we're piloting some digital A-frames at the moment, so the town council in question can just literally wheel out the frame, put it out front, and then they're collecting information from the businesses. So they just put it on a USB stick, plug the stick in, and it's good to go. Or I think you can also update it from your phone. So depending how you work best, really. So yeah, that's something that we can give more information on as well. So I'll go on now to the Internet of Things. So as I said, the Internet of Things are all different sensors and things that are connected. That can be via Wi-Fi, or it can be via LoRaWAN, it can be via, you know, different systems, so NB-IoT as well, which would use phone signal. You don't need to worry about the techie side, but we know we can put you in touch with the people that can help with all that. So this is a simple example of a dashboard. There are loads of different dashboards available, but just this gives you a kind of idea about how you'd get that top-down view of your town. So you can see, you know, the parking areas that are really busy, you can see what the weather is, you can see if your bins are full, you can see what the correlation is then between the weather and the bins being full, or, you know, the weather, the air quality and the car parking. So it enables you to make different decisions, to have alerts. So for example, councils can have bin sensors so that then they only empty the bins when they know they're going to be full, so they're not making extra journeys, extra emissions, or things like that. So I'll go into a bit more detail about the different sensors that are available. So like I said, footfall is a really important one. So it's the main data that businesses and decision makers are really interested in. So you can compare things like, you know, you can assess how successful events have been, where people are going, you know, by using different sensors, you can see which areas are more popular. Maybe if signage would help to, you know, to divert footfall to different areas. Anything you want to do, really. That doesn't necessarily have to be through the Wi-Fi. You can use these IoT sensors that literally is just like a laser beam. So whenever that beam is cut, that can be counted as a person. And they're a lot smarter than that as well. So they can be used for cars. So obviously the longer it's cut for, the bigger the vehicle is, things like that. Can also be used to monitor parking bays. So this is an example, just to make it a little bit real about how footfall can be useful. So this is a spreadsheet that's available on our website, and it allows businesses to compare their high street footfall with their town footfall, and also with their income. So in the first example here in January, obviously these lines on the graph are all kind of where you would expect them to be. And then when you look at August, the town footfall goes a lot higher, but the building footfall and the income doesn't really change. So sometimes it can be difficult for a business, to look inwards in that way. So they might not realize, that the high street is as busy, or they might not see where they are in relation to other things. So that could mean, that they're more of a local business. So the locals have gone on holiday, the tourists are in town, but the tourists, for whatever reason, aren't coming in through their doors. So do they need, better signage? Do they need products that are more tailored towards the people that are on the high street? So it just helps to raise questions, and it helps businesses to adapt by knowing, particularly where they're at. And there are loads of different ways that that the different sensors can help businesses to work more efficiently. So in the case of hospitality, things like fridge and freezer sensors. So these sensors, I don't know if anyone has a background in catering, but I know I used to have to go around recording temperatures of, sometimes 12 to 15 fridges and freezers daily. And when places are so short-staffed, that's kind of a half an hour job every day that you wouldn't have to do. So it also means that if there is an incident where a fridge or freezer has failed, you get a text message instantly to go and check it. So if those checks weren't being done, or someone was signing to say that they were being done and they weren't, you wouldn't be in a position where you're losing, potentially thousands of pounds worth of stock. Also helps businesses work more efficiently in, maybe in big hotels or restaurants where, staff will be checking toilets hourly. Instead, they could check them more frequently or less frequently depending on usage, by using footfall counters on the toilets, or by using little feedback things like you've probably seen in airports. So you can put a sensor on pretty much anything. There's the example of the rat trap as well. So obviously you might have rat traps all around a building, but you might just get a notification to say, oh, this one has gone off, so you won't have to go all the way around. So just working smarter, not harder, really. And then for the environment, obviously net zero and climate change are a big deal at the moment. There's all kinds of sensors that can help prove where you're at, prove problem areas, or not even necessarily for climate change, things like sound, light levels. So one example is the air quality sensors. So we've been comparing air quality with temperature. So interestingly, the air quality goes down when the temperature goes down. So more people using cars, more people using log burners, and people have used this data. I think this in South Wales at the moment, they're using air quality data to encourage more people to walk to school. So parents are more likely to respect that kind of campaign when they see the data and they see how bad the quality of the air is. But obviously it can be used for all kinds of things. So sound can be used to measure antisocial behaviour, for example, or even that can be turned around. So if someone is trying for a license for a nightclub or a bar, and neighbours are worried about sound, they can say, well, do you know what, we'll be measuring the sound, and we can put that in our planning, to kind of preempt any issues. Also simple door sensing, so these can literally be life-saving. So sensors on life buoys, on defibs, on gates, that can send an alert straight to emergency services, or if they've been tampered with, just to someone who can make sure that that they're back in place for whoever might need them. Parking, this is an absolutely massive issue with pretty much everybody that we talk to. So by monitoring your car parks, you can either identify places that are being overused and then offer free parking somewhere else. You can you know, kind of encourage people to use other areas, or you can even provide live data. So you could have an app for people to see, you know, oh, actually, that town's always really busy, but I can see that there's quite a lot of parking. So, you know, it might be worth popping to the shops there. It can also help council see, you know, maybe the disabled bays are always full, so we need to make sure that there are enough bays to make that town more accessible. So identify problems, it can, you know, help run a smoother service. It could encourage funding for something like a park and ride, and it can also help, you know, just help support any kind of hypothesis or question a hypothesis. So yeah, cheesy, but there are endless opportunities. So what are the barriers? Like I said earlier, getting the time, people to kind of put this in order is obviously an issue. But apart from that, you have your kind of outside things. So we're aware of your kind of conspiracies, people that are concerned about 5G and things like that. So we have quite a few resources on our website, and we can also provide extra support with that. Things like permission, security, power supply. So there's a lot of, you know, practical issues, and there are a lot of kind of more societal issues as well. Digital skills, also an issue. As I said, you don't necessarily have to be techie to get involved and to help push things forward. But there is a lot of support for people who do want to improve their digital skills. So as you briefly saw, Rich, Business Wales provide a lot of support. They provide a digital skills audit for any businesses through Superfast Business Wales to identify where they need the help, and then they can put them in touch with that one-to-one support. So we can also signpost you to the appropriate people as well. And these, I think these are just, yeah, these are kind of skills that we can help with. So let's assume that you've got your infrastructure, you've got your technologies, everything in place. So what do you actually do with that data? Because there is so much data already that has been collected, is being collected, and can be accessed for free. So we also did with a consultancy, we did an audit of all the data that is available to help towns in Wales, so that can also be accessed. So obviously we've covered all of these different sources of data. Oh, we haven't mentioned social media actually. So that's another, as you probably know, really rich source of data. You know, who might be following or interacting with your business or with your, you know, your council. There's also different places that you can just get the data from. So Springboard is a nationwide company that collects footfall data and shares insights weekly. So they assess things, you know, like you know, strikes, weather events, anything, and show how the UK is adapting to that. So you can then compare your town with that to see, you know, how these national trends affect things like that. Google Business, Street Map, things like that, all have extra data. I'll share these slides with you as well, so you can have, you know, look into anything that is of interest. These are just examples of the kind of, again, the dashboards and the information that you can get. Oh yeah, this is, I've mentioned this already, the different data sets. So they're all mapped out. So you can just click on them and you can find the data sets if that is of interest. So how would you store your data? How would you distribute it? Will that be on the cloud? Will somebody download it? Will you make your own data reports? Will you commission somebody to make them? Will you have a dashboard that does your reporting for you? There's a lot to think about, and obviously it depends on the skill set and on the budget. But I'll go through some examples. So turning data into knowledge and decisions. So yeah, like we discussed these dashboards earlier. So these are the kind of really simple to use. The data is right in front of you, but you can also download it into an Excel spreadsheet, so you can combine it with other things. There are also platforms that use like AI and machine learning to actually do the analysis, so that you can get, you know, the bigger picture. Again, when it comes to data, things like GDPR, really important. So we've got some resources on our website about GDPR. So we went through a really rigorous process with specialist lawyers to make sure that our policies were all as they should be. So that's all openly available for you to have a look as a reference. And the DPIA is something else as well, if you are processing people's data, and that's all on our website as well. So this is an example of the kind of monthly report that people have been creating. So this is from another Mental Morn project called Smart Another Morn, and we produced these reports kind of as an example really of good practice. So businesses can just have a quick overview without having to log in themselves, because we know that people, especially businesses, are really short on time. So that's something to think about, you know, having someone to produce these reports. And then how will you distribute it? So is there a mailing list? Do you use something like MailChimp? Or do you literally have flyers, you know, that people can come and take a look at? So just different examples of how this data is shared. We mentioned about how apps provide a lot of data as well. So this is an example of a report of the Cardigan Town app that some of the businesses received. They also received these graphs. So someone's obviously been analysing the data and then showing them how they're doing. This was obviously pandemic. That's the, you know, quite a brutal example of seeing changes. So yeah, back to the start with the action plan. Reviewing the high street, thinking about what you want to achieve, what resources you have, measuring the achievements and building that step-by-step plan. Again, linear but also circular, kind of constant process. So this is an example of the action plan. So I would suggest, if as a town council or BID or anyone that you want to come together and do this, what we suggest is recruiting that team that we spoke about earlier. So obviously works with just a handful of people, but we've been getting a mix, you know, of those people that we suggested. So business owners, social enterprises, and then go through this brainstorming. So what do you want to get out of your town? What do you want to see improved? How are you going to get there? What technology would help? What data would help? And divide this into your short-term goals, mid-term goals, and your long-term goals. So we have examples of these on the website, and we're still really happy to review any action plans that you produce, and to give our feedback on those, and to put you in contact with people that can help with that. So yeah, that's the process that I've just mentioned. And yeah, like I've mentioned a few times, that's we have a lot of resources on our website. We have case studies, different documents that you can use, and we also share these regularly over Twitter. So if you're not following us already, please make sure that you do, or if you're in LinkedIn, you can join the group. So I've tried to get through that quickly to just provide an overview. I'm gonna have to switch her. Here we go. So yeah, that managed to get through that in less than an hour. So just thought that it would be more useful maybe for people to be able to ask questions, and then, you know, I can give you more information about the relevant parts to yourselves. So so I'll answer first. Laura, how would you monitor income? Is that via the businesses or parking income? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Laura, because I can't think where I was in the presentation when you asked that.
No, it's I did notice that you compared footfall to income.
Okay.
So what would you class as income? Is that business income, or would it be like in our case income from the parking, or did you have other income streams in mind?
That's a really good point. Any income streams would be interesting because, for example, businesses obviously not too happy about sharing their income. So this was used more on a personal basis, just for a business to see where they're at. But if businesses were willing to anonymously share their income, it would be really, really interesting to compare that with your parking income. And of course, when things like, free parking, businesses always say, oh, well, the council should just give free parking and that will solve everything. But by using that data, you could actually see how useful that was to the businesses. So what we always say is the more different data sets that you can combine, the more useful it is, because you'll see different trends and things that maybe you hadn't thought about.
That's great. To date, have you had any businesses come forward and offer sort of information on their income?
So I've had businesses agree to, and then I've had them turn around and say that they were too busy, which is good in one way, but also not great from the data perspective. But we've had people download it and keep it to themselves. So that's also fine, as long as they're getting that value out of it.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. And how does the street parking sensor work? So there are loads of different types of parking sensors. So I'd say it depends on what the scenario is. So if it's a closed off parking lot with one entrance, then the laser one that I was talking about is sufficient. It's it's simple enough. It just counts the in and out. If you've got more of a complicated situation like on street parking, you can have a little parking sensor, which is it's probably about it's probably like that size kind of thing that will be installed on the tarmac, and then that will know when there's a car on top of it. So that will add that data to your dashboard, and it'll tell you which ones are occupied, how long they're occupied for. So that gives a much more accurate and a fuller picture of the parking data. People are also now using cameras. So again, depending on the area that you want to cover, the camera can be really useful, because it can obviously tell you which bays are available, but it can also tell you if someone's parked illegally somewhere, whether that's if they've been there too long, or if they're parked outside the bay, if they're parked over 2 bays, things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. We do have an issue with on-street parking at the moment we're looking at, and we're in contact with the local police, so we're due to meet with them. So that might be a temporary thing that we go ahead with, working alongside the police at the moment to get those double yellow lines put on there. But it is a major issue, because we've got coaches turning up for the school runs, 2-3 shops all in that same locality. So yeah, we're struggling a little bit with that. So it might just be a temporary thing to move traffic, disperse traffic, but then we have the problem where we don't have adequate parking at all. So yeah, we're struggling a little bit. The town is becoming a more busy. It's a small town, but it's getting progressively busier. So yeah, we're just working on that. And I was just thinking, maybe this is just a temporary thing we need to look at, rather than a long-term data action, depending on which way it goes, obviously. But yeah, that does answer my question. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, in terms of the data long term, it could provide the argument that more parking is needed.
Yeah, I was thinking that for more evidence based in the long term. it could provide us with a good case to go forward with. It's just where, like, physically we cannot think of anywhere at the moment anyway for it to go. But yeah, something to think about. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I was just going to ask as well, sorry, it seems like a really big undertaking. I know that's a lot of ideas in that session, and obviously you wouldn't want to take on them all at once, but
yeah, definitely.
Would setting up the Wi-Fi, because that's a really good idea for us. We're thinking, because we're just trying to engage the older children of the town at the moment as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we've had a little bit of issues with behaviour around the town, so we're thinking maybe install a shelter, but also someone mentioned Wi-Fi for them, just to, you know, because all they want to do is hang out.
Yeah.
So because we've done surveys to ask, you know, what can we do for you, what would you like to see in the town, and really that's all they want to do at that age, I think.
Yeah,
a sports hub, but it's not well used. So yeah, Wi-Fi, to me, that was the first thing that jumped out. Obviously not just for the teenagers, but for visitors as well.
yes.
So I'm thinking that might be a good start for us. And you say Pwllheli have already piloted that, have they? They're already up and running with that.
So Menton Moor have actually got, we will have 30 towns where we've installed the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
So that was funded by Gwynedd and Anglesey County Councils. And I know other councils.
Self-funded, is it?
That by the actual county councils.
The county councils, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you need to sort of argue your case for that? How would you apply for that funding as a town council?
As a town council, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think, you know, obviously it's a strong case to make, and with there being so many case studies of it being useful, then, you know, it's quite a strong evidence for it, but I'm not sure how you'd go about that, but I will find out.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to overwhelm you all. I know it sounds like, you know, you're trying to change everything in one go. Lots of people just go, oh, do you know what, we could do with some sensors, or, you know, it's whatever interests them. It's not kind of trying to change everything all at once.
No, it's great to have all those ideas, isn't it? But as a small town, the resource just isn't there for us to get up and running with everything. So but yeah, it's exciting. Same time.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello.
Hi, David.
Oh, hello. You're going to send us a copy of the slides, are you?
Yeah, I'll make sure I send you a copy.
Oh, you've got my email address, because that's brilliant. I found it extremely interesting, the whole lot, and it's a lot to take in. It'll probably take me years to take it in, but it was. I enjoyed the presentation very much. It's just mind-boggling, really.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Would there be a recording of it available?
Yeah, it's been recorded.
How could I obtain a copy of the recording?
Yeah, sure. What I'll do is I'll put it on YouTube, and then I'll send the link out to everybody as well. All
right, oh good, because I'm not very good at this sort of thing, so it needs to be fairly simple and straightforward, as it does appear
no
to be
problem.
from what you say. Anyway, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your presentation, and I have enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you.
Very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie, so I suspect most people here would be interested in the next practical steps, where to get the technical advice, but also how to get the funding. So we are actually working on a funding workshop, because I think that is something that comes up again and again. So I'll make sure. Are you subscribed to our mailing list? Is that how you found out about this workshop?
Are you talking to me?
To everybody,
To
really.
everybody,
Sorry.
okay. I had it from the Raider Town Council.
Okay.
Very efficient clerk, and she sent all the details to us, which was very useful. So that's how I
Brilliant.
found out.
Okay. So what I'll do is,
That
if
might
you-
have been through One Voice Wales, but I don't know. That's a pure guess.
okay,
Anyway, we received it one way or another.
if you're all happy, I'll add you to the mailing list, and then I'll make sure that you get the invite to the funding workshop. If anyone doesn't want to be added, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll add you all.
Well, that'll be good. Thank you for that. Yes.
Brilliant.
Just funding is most important for a lot of these things, or all of them, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's no good
Any
without
information we
funding.
can have on avenues where we can secure funding would be very, very good indeed. So thank you for that also.
Okay, I think transforming towns is the main one. Obviously, with us being closely linked with transforming towns, there's a good chance that something could come of that. But yeah, working on that workshop. Laura, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I'm fairly new in the post, so I've only been in the post 1 week. I'm aware, I think we have a Cisco account set up.
Oh, okay.
One of our town centres, but we do operate and manage 4 town centres in total. And I just noticed during your presentation that there was data for multiple town centres. So is that data available anywhere for us to access and compare, or is it only to our individual towns?
So with the Cisco, it's just the individual towns. So Patram, the one that I was showing with the towns being compared, that's a separate platform. But
Right.
you can, if you wanted to. Sorry, what's your job, Laura? Where are you
So I'm
based?
the town centres manager for Neath Talbot County Borough Council.
Oh, okay, great.
So I was wondering, with obviously all these pilot schemes, whether there was any information to the footfall within town centres across maybe South Wales or Wales as a whole.
So I'm not aware of one in South Wales at the moment, but I know that Patram is definitely open to more towns coming on board. So for example, if you wanted your 4 towns on Patram and you already have the Cisco Meraki up and running, it would be quite a simple matter to just get the data on there.
Okay.
So that you could then show it, and then people would be able to, to see it all in one place, kind of thing.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. Thank you
So
for that.
if that's something that you're interested in, I'll set up a separate talk with Paul from Patram.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out. And like I said, it's whether I can gather any information from other town centres as well.
Yeah.
Some might not want to publicly share it, but if there is any information available, it'd be quite handy for myself.
Yeah, definitely. And how are you getting on with the Cisco dashboard? Are you using that data? Sorry, you said you've only been there a week.
I've only been there a week, so that's on my to-do list now, is to sort of navigate that. I think we secured some funding for it, so we only had a few sensors in place. So I have to sort of look into it, look at the figures. And an issue that we might be up against, I don't know if you would know it, but if we wanted to introduce more sensors, is that quite easy for us to add going forward?
Is that the Cisco Meraki, the access point?
There's, I don't know if you might not even know this, because obviously I don't know where the funding came from or when it was installed, but if we wanted to add a few more sensors, is that quite easy?
Adding shouldn't be too much of a problem. Well, in so much as not more of a problem than installing the original ones was. So if you have, an installer and you know where they need to be and things like that, then adding to the network shouldn't be an extra obstacle, but it depends on how that process was in the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no problem. That's great. Thanks for your help.
No problem. And if you want some support with the Cisco Meraki, just let me know as well. We've got a workshop coming up with the technical architect or something of Cisco, and he goes through the dashboard. We do them quarterly.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah,
that might
if
be
you can add
useful.
me to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I will email links to Transforming Towns as well. Any more questions? No? Okay, well, in that case, you'll get 25 minutes of your lives back. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope that was useful and interesting. And yeah, if you want any further support, just get in touch. And if I don't know the answer, then I'm sure I can find someone that does. So great, thank you all.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.